What's up, everyone? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to talk about what's happening with the overall market. Let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, guys, just want to mention that right now, the market's in a very, very critical place. We saw this nice gap up and a nice push up that happened because of the news from the Bank of Japan. As they mentioned, they're not going to be cutting rates or raising rates, excuse me. And then also, the market had a more positive reaction. This is also a big reaction from yesterday. So we got that little sell off at the end of the day, and the buyers were continuing to maintain this uptrend. So that's the reason why the market was trying to push back up. We got some decent news, and we saw some defense from the bulls as the algorithms got a really, really nice shift. However, SPY pushed, right? And we went up to about 532 as a resistance, and we weren't able to crack through that. Now, if we broke 532, SPY could have started to push to much higher levels. We could have actually went all the way up to like the higher 530s if we had broken 532, and so far we've been struggling to do so. Now, there's not really a whole lot of data that's coming out for today. As a reminder, we do have the 10-year note auction at 1 p.m., but it's all very minor, so it's not really anything too crazy from data this week, at least for the remainder of the week. But I just want to say that with SPY kind of moving this way, technicals and levels are now very, very key. So I'm going to be looking at two supports right here. We have our 50 and 20 EMAs as support. Watch SPY at 527. If that does not hold, watch 525.94. We got to hold that, or else we're going to be retracing all the way down to gap support in the 523s. I think that we wouldn't just stop there. We do have a higher probability of filling the gap to 520 if we end up losing 525. So I want to make that very, very clear. That's going to be a very, very critical support for SPY, 525. To be bullish, we want to break past 532 to really start pushing on this thing. We did come close, but we weren't able to crack that. So I wanted everyone to be very, very careful with the way that this is moving. And there is a potential rejection that could be forming here, and there is some risk. So I want to give you guys a warning about that. So I'll be watching these levels very, very carefully. We'll see if SPY can also hold 528. So watch 528 as resistance, and then critical support happens to be at 525. There's also some support at 527. So watch those areas. Notes that there is a little bit of a decline right now that's forming, and there's some weakness kind of building on the chart up here. So we'll just have to see how well things hold up. I'm going to go to a lower time frame, to the 5-minute, just to show you this. So this is what's happening. We had this like double top like structure today, and we're kind of declining a little bit, and there is risk of a little bit more downside. So I just wanted to give you guys a warning about that. Please keep this in the back of your guys' minds. Going back to the hourly, SPY is showing some weakness. We'll have to see if he holds support or not. I also want to note that ES is doing something very similar. We have this 5350 area as resistance. That's also very close to this gap. So we did fill this gap on ES. Had we have broken past this gap resistance, we could have gone all the way up to about 5380, but we came just short. So with this decline, we're going to be looking at this critical support right over here. We have support at 5325. If this doesn't hold on ES, we're going all the way down to the low 5300s, and that's going to cause a big decline on SPY. So be careful at this 5325 area. We're very close to it. So that's going to be our critical support where this wick is. If that breaks, expect more downside for ES. For SPX, it's looking very, very similar. We pushed all the way up towards this 5320 area. If we don't hold above 5289, first off, we have this gap to fill all the way down to 5280. And if that breaks, we're going all the way down to some balance in the 5240 area. So you want to be very careful with SPX. We got to hold at least 5280. I want to see it hold that. If we don't, things are going to turn south quite fast. Also look at 5320 as resistance. We are favoring a little bit of a dip right now. We're barely holding support, so we'll see if it holds. So be careful, guys. I want to give you guys a warning. If you look at Nvda tried to break out today, hitting 108, but then it rejected, forming a double top. We have support all the way down here around this 102 area. If 102 fails, this thing is dipping all the way back down to 100. We have resistance around 104.7 to 104.8, so watch that very carefully. That's going to be very important for Nvda. But like I said before, there is a risk of some downside, in my personal opinion, especially as we have this gap down here. So be mindful of that, guys. Also, when it comes to Bitcoin, I just want to mention that there's a bit of a dip as well that's kind of forming. Look at resistance at 56,400 50. Look at support at 55,700 flat, so around right over here. I see a risk of this dipping all the way back down to that mid 55,000 area and possibly lower if that breaks. So watch and see how things end up progressing. For other factors out there, we have the triple Q. The triple Q is barely holding support. We have 443 as support. If that fails us, watch 441. That's going to be critical support as well for the QQQ, because if that does not hold, we're going all the way down to the high 430s, like 437, 435 all over again. So watch two supports, 443 and then 441. Watch resistance all the way up here around this 440. Let me just double check this 447 area. If that breaks, we could turn back up, but this is favoring a little bit of a dip. So please be very careful, guys. I'm seeing some weakness building on the charts. Aapl is trying to rebound. It's still holding up nicely, but we got to break past 214 to really start pushing. If 214 breaks, Aapl could go all the way up to about 217. If we don't break 214, I'm going to be looking for 210.7 all over again. And then there's also risk of 209. So 209 to 210 if this fails. So be careful with Aapl. For the IWM, we're declining a little bit. Look at resistance at this 205 area. And we also have this big support down here. So the Russell's showing some weakness. We need to reclaim 207. If we don't reclaim 207, there's a risk of 203. So I'm seeing weakness on the chart. For Coinbase, we rejected off 198. There is a risk of some downside. We're going to be looking at 185. If that does not hold, we're going to be tipping even lower. And then we still have that possible head and shoulders. We need to reclaim 197 to turn back up, but this is favoring downside. It might be dipping all the way down to 185, not 182. Amazon pushed all the way up to resistance. We're barely holding support at 165. So if we hold this, we could rebound and continue to push back up higher towards 168. If we don't hold 165, we could be dipping lower. So watch 165 and then 163.9. If those levels break, we're easily going to fill this gap down to 161. We're barely holding support in the 165 area. Let's hope if Amazon holds that up. For Meta formed a bearish divergence on its push up to about this 510 area. I call that 510 if 500 holds, but now we're starting to decline. Watch 495 as key support. We got to hold that. If we don't hold 495, we're at risk of dipping down to 489, if not 483. So there is a risk of a decline on Meta if we don't reclaim 495 and then 500. So there is a risk of downside. Looking at Microsoft, there's also a risk of some downside. We're going to be looking at 403 right now. The market pumped with the Bank of Japan's news that came out, but now the algos are showing that the move is not enough for us to hold up. So look at 403 on Microsoft. If that fails us, I could be looking for 401 and eventually the 390s. If that fails, look at resistance all the way up towards 408. This is favoring 403 to be tested. We'll see what kind of reaction we get. And Google has 162 as support. If that fails, we'll be looking for 160. So be very, very careful, guys. The market is still showing weakness. I want everyone to be very, very careful. So that being said, we'll have to see if SPY could hold this support at 528 or not. And if that fails, let's watch the other supports I called out. The market was trying to pump, which is awesome to see, but just know that the pump, it's showing some signs of a possible rejection. So be careful. We'll see how well the levels hold up, and just note that you have to be very, very careful with the way things are moving. All right. So thank you for listening. Have a great day and peace out.